Greetings everyone, this is this week's 9900, and it's that time of year again. Pokemon Day is right around the corner, and as per usual, there's going to be a Pokemon Presents airing on Pokemon Day itself, showcasing some of the big plans the Pokemon Company has in store for the year. With them usually saving the biggest announcement, either a new mainline game or DLC for a mainline game, for the very end. Now, 2024 was a little different, as we all know, with the presentation being very quick, very light on details, and the biggest announcement was for a game that wasn't even going to be releasing that year, being, of course, Pokemon Legends ZA. So, with all that in mind, I figured that with Pokemon Day right around the corner, let's just sit down and do a little predicting for what we could see this year. And lastly, don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And let's get right to it. Now, because of how light last year's presentation was, and the fact that we already know what this year's mainline game is going to be, I think it would make sense to have our expectations a little bit lower, as any further bigger surprises will likely be saved for Legends ZA itself. But it's still possible that we could see another big project revealed here in addition to Legends ZA. However, at the same time, I feel like it's pretty unlikely, especially since 2025 is going to be quite a big year for Nintendo, with, of course, the upcoming release of the Nintendo Switch 2. And I would like to imagine that, in addition to Nintendo themselves, the Pokemon Company is likely already hard at work at some of their first big projects for the Switch 2. Now, I don't anticipate Legends ZA to be one of the first Switch 2 games, but we'll get to more about that in a little bit. Plus, in addition to the Switch 2, next year, 2026, is going to be Pokemon's 30th anniversary. So, I would like to imagine that they're likely going to be spending this year just doing as much preparation as possible to kick off the celebrations of the 30th anniversary. Which is also why I anticipate this year's Pokemon Day to be rather small. Now, much like last year's predictions, I will not be talking about any rumors or leaks in this video, and I do ask all of you to keep the comments spoiler-free as well. So, all the predictions that I will be making in this video will be pure personal speculation. Now, despite what I already just said, I do otherwise expect the format for this presentation to be pretty typical. So, mobile games to start, Pokemon Day events for current mainline games, maybe some world stuff, and of course, the mainline game details for the very end. Now, last year's presentation saw them spending not a lot of time on the mobile game stuff. And I do think that they'll likely do it again this year too, especially since a lot of the announcements for the live service games have already been made as of when I'm making this video. Like Pokemon Sleep, for example, is giving players a 1.5 times boost to their drowsy power for a Pokemon Day. And Pokemon Unite is getting some of the features that first debuted in the Chinese version. Now, do I see anything else substantial coming for the other live service games, like Cafe Remix or Masters, if they haven't already announced their stuff just yet? Not necessarily. Now, the only live service game that I think could make another announcement during the presentation is Pokemon Sleep. And the thing that I'm predicting here is the arrival of the Kanto legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. And that's simply because last year saw the arrival of Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, I think in that very order. So I would like to imagine that they're probably going to do something similar for the Kanto birds. Now, outside of that, I've just glossed over the live service games, if you couldn't tell already, as one, they're unpredictable, it feels like, and like I said, they already, a lot of them at least, already made their announcements for what they're doing for Pokemon Day, so there's not much else that I could really add for this part. So then, what about potential events for the current mainline games, Scarlet and Violet? Now, I do think there will be something for Scarlet and Violet to commemorate Pokemon Day. And I think it's probably just going to be a copy and paste of what they did last year, which are the Kanto starters and Terra Raids. Yeah, I know. Doesn't sound all that exciting, and even I agree. But, come on. This is the Pokemon company we're talking about. They will always try to fucking drip feed us the Kanto starters whenever they get even the slightest chance to do so. Now, I do think it would be kind of neat if we had another starter trio for a Terra Raid event for Pokemon Day, like, I don't know, the Johto starters and the Hoenn starters. Any other region besides Kanto, because they deserve the spotlight just as much as Kanto, let's be honest. Now, what's kind of funny is that when I was writing the script for this video, I predicted the return of Walk and Wake and Iron Leaves for Pokemon Day, but no doing that a week in advance, so by the time you're seeing this video, the event could be still ongoing. If not, it might have already ended. But yeah, like, it's cool to see that they're back, but earlier than I expected, so that's already outdated as I started my words. Now let's move on from that, as last year I did predict the possibility of the announcement of a replacement for the Pokemon TV app. But not only did that not happen during Pokemon Day, it happened later in 2024 in the form of a YouTube channel. And it was also branded Pokemon TV. Now, in the same video, I did also predict the hope of seeing a preview for the second season of Pokemon Concierge. But I was absent too. Now, speaking of Concierge, a few episodes of the first season are actually viewable on Pokemon's YouTube channel right now for a limited time until March 9th. Now, do I think this will be a sign that we'll finally get to see a preview of Season 2? I have no idea. It would be kind of cool considering that it's been like, what, almost a year since the announcement of the second season? So I feel like enough time has finally passed for us to see it. So I do think that this year will finally be the year that we'll see the second season of Concierge.
Granted, I do still need to see it. The first season, that is.
Granted, hoping for a second season preview really is just, again, pure speculation with little evidence, no evidence to support my prediction, but come on, let a guy dream, okay? Now, it's not just new mainline games that get revealed during the February Pokemon Presents either, as there have been a few side games revealed here and there, complete with gameplay too. CCG Pocket last year, Pokemon Sleep in 2023 being two such examples. However, of course, those were mobile games, and in the case of Pokemon Sleep, that project had already been known for quite some time leading up to the first gameplay reveal. So, do I see a new spin-off game being revealed during this upcoming presentation? To be honest, I kind of have my doubts. Considering that we just got a new mobile game last year with TCG Pocket, I don't think the Pokemon Company is in such a hurry to put out yet another mobile game when TCG Pocket isn't even a year old yet. Then again, the time between the release of Pokemon Sleep and the reveal of TCG Pocket was about 7 months, so it's entirely possible that it could happen again this year too. But in my opinion, I do think that if we do get another side game, it should be on either the Switch or Switch 2, instead of just another mobile game. Furthermore, it shouldn't be another live service game. I think I speak for everyone when I say this, but I too am getting a little tired of the live service games. To be fair, they're fine for what they are, but they shouldn't be the only live service games the Pokemon Company decides to make. Hell, to put some perspective, the last Pokemon side game that we got on the Switch that wasn't a live service game was Detective Pikachu Returns in late 2023. And the one before that was new Pokemon Snap in 2021. So yeah, outside of what I'm going to be saying for Legends ZA, this is probably the biggest thing that I personally want to see from this presentation. What kind of games do I think it will be? I have no fucking idea. The ultimate copium would be for a new Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or a remake of Explorers of Sky. But even that might be asking for a bit much. And that's because Pokemon loves to be unpredictable, so I'm not even going to try and make any further guesses, and we'll just move on. Now, if there's one thing that has always been consistent with Pokemon's presentations, is that they always save the newest info for the next mainline game as the final announcement. This year, of course, is going to be quite different, given that we already know what the next game is going to be, like I said already. Additionally, last year's presentation also set a first for Pokemon by revealing the next game, even though it wasn't scheduled to be released that very year, at least the first time in quite a while. And ever since Legends EA got revealed last year, there has been nothing but cricket tops about it. I'm not sorry. Now, joking aside, I'm not saying that as a bad thing, even though a lot of people will like to disagree with me on that. But I have no reason to believe we won't see our first glimpse of gameplay of Legends EA during this upcoming presentation. Not only will we see what the game is actually going to look like, but we will also see how the game is going to be played, and more importantly, who the starters are and what the release window is going to be. The general consensus is that the starters for Legends EA could be Snivy, Scorbunny or Chimchar, and Piplup or Popplio. Notice how none of them are the actual color starters. And that's because these guesses are going off of what Legends Arceus did, where it opted for a completely new set of starters, all which that come from different regions, instead of having the actual Sinnoh starters as the starters for that game, opting to have them be found in the wild instead. And a lot of people are in agreement that Legends EA is going to do basically the exact same thing, as it just makes a lot of sense given what we saw already. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't have access to Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. They'll just be obtainable in the wild, again, much like how Turtwig, Chimchar, and Piplup were found in the wild in Pokemon Legends Arceus. And the Pokemon that we'll get to choose as our starter are just simply different Pokemon that were brought to Lumiose from different regions. Now, immediately, I'm tossing out all of the Kanto starters. And that's simply because they were already a starter choice in X and Y. Plus, I would like to imagine that whatever that we do get as our starters, we'll either get a new regional variant, a Mega Evolution, or maybe even both. Now, as for which Pokemon I think could be the starters, for the grass starter, I'm just gonna stick with the popular opinion of Snivy being the grass starter, as I feel like it is just a perfect fit for this game. But the other two that are being tossed around are a different story for me. Now, in addition to the Kanto starters, I'm also tossing out all of the Hoenn starters as well, given that those also got new Mega Evolutions in Generation 6. And I'm also going to be tossing out Cyndaquil as well, given that it was the fire starter in Legends Arceus, so it doesn't make sense for it to be the starter again for a second Legends game in a row. Now, I'm also kind of leaning toward no on Fuecoco, or just any of the Paldea starters, to be a starter Pokemon in Legends EA, as I feel like Scarlet and Violet are just too new of games for them to be another starter set for a second game in a row. So in the case of fire starters, that only leaves Chimchar, Tepig, Litten, and Scorbunny as potential candidates for the fire starter. Now, I don't have the greatest confidence that Tepig is gonna be the one. And the same could also unfortunately be held true for Litten. I just don't see a scenario where that could be the fire starter as well. Which brings us back to Chimchar and Scorbunny. Now, which one do I think could be it? As much as I want it to be Chimchar, I'm going to have to lean towards Scorbunny. And I think the sole reason is because Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus are still pretty recent in our memories, and all the Sinnoh starters were very prominent in both sets of games. So there's just this feeling in my gut saying that Scorbunny is going to be the one instead of Chimchar, even though I do think both Pokemon would make a solid candidate for the fire starter. Now, as for what I think could be the water starter, like I mentioned already, the general consensus for the water starter could be either Piplup or Popplio. Now, as someone who absolutely adores both of these Pokemon, I would be incredibly happy if it was either of them. But let's zoom out a little bit and see if there are any other water starters that could also have a pretty good shot. But the question then becomes, are there? Surprisingly, yes. Just a reminder, Squirtle, Mudkip, Oshawott, Froakie, and Quaxly are all not going to be it for reasons that I mentioned already. So then that leaves us, in addition to Piplup and Popplio, we also have Totodile and Sobble as our other two candidates. Now, as cool as it would be for Sobble to be a pick, if Scorbunny is going to be a starter, then that immediately disqualifies Sobble. Plus, I just don't think it has a good shot at being the water starter for this game. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Inteleon, but I don't think it would be a good fit for this game. But Totodile, Piplup, and Popplio do make some strong names for themselves, however. Now, granted, I did just say no to Chimchar because of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Light of Darkness still being somewhat recent. But I do think Piplup has a stronger chance than Chimchar. And yet, despite that, I don't think Piplup is going to be the one. My gut is just saying no. And mind you, Piplup is my personal favorite starter Pokemon, so that's kind of saying a lot for me to say. Now, as for Popplio and Totodile, I'm kind of torn, honestly. Now, my heart really, really wants to go with Popplio because Primarina is my all-time favorite Pokemon. And nothing will get me screaming more than Primarina getting either a regional variant, Mega Evolution, or both. Plus, I just feel like Primarina would make an even better fit for this game than even Empoleon. So, while I am going to settle with Popplio for the sake of this predictions video, I would not be mad if Totodile ends up making the cut because Primarina is pretty awesome too, and it would be kind of cool to see that get a new form of some kind. But hey, if none of them are your cup of tea, you can always just catch a Froakie in the wild and use Greninja. That will always be an option. So, just to recap on my starter predictions for Legends EA. They are Snivy for Grass, due to popular opinion, Scorbunny, again, for popular opinion, and Popplio for the water starter, again because of popular opinion and also personal bias. Now, is it possible that any of them could make it, or none of them could make it? It is very, very possible. Now, let's shift our focus a little bit and try to guess when this game could be coming out. All we officially know, as of right now, is that it's releasing at some point this year. But we just don't know when in 2025 it's gonna be released. And we will likely know at least when this year it will be releasing. We probably won't get an exact date, but rather a window of interest. Now, given that we have gone a full year without any info about this game, I don't anticipate Legends EA being a spring release or even a summer release. And to make things even more complicated is the release of the Switch 2. Now, like I said, I don't anticipate Legends EA being a Switch 2 exclusive, but it's also possible that this game could see some enhancements if played on the Switch 2, while still being marketed as a game for the Switch 1. And I very well think that the Switch 2's release is going to impact when Legends EA is going to release. Now, could this finally be the time when a new mainline Pokemon game releases as a launch title for a new Nintendo console? That could happen too. But at the same time, it's kind of unlikely in my opinion. Especially since, again, I don't see this being a Switch 2 exclusive. It could be a cross-gen game for all we know, but solely for the Switch 2 is not likely in my opinion. which is why I do feel like the more likely scenario is that Legends EA will likely release after the Switch 2 will. Which is why I'm anticipating this game releasing in the fall of this year. So, in the time frame of October to November. Now, most mainline Pokemon games, starting with X and Y, have been releasing in the October to November time frame. And because of that, they're usually one of the big Nintendo games to be marketed for that holiday season. And I imagine Legends EA will be no different. Now, I say most mainline games, and that's simply because of the fact that Legends Arceus was a January release back in 2022. Jesus Christ, that game's release was weird now that I think about it. Now, if you didn't notice until now, not once throughout this video did I mention anything regarding Gen 10. And that's because I don't see it releasing this year. Yeah, this year will mark 3 years since Scarlet and Violet came out, but I don't think this is a good time to reveal the next generation, damn it! Not only do we have a new console releasing this year, but we don't even know what Legends EA even looks like prior to the presentation. So I feel like revealing another new game when the next game isn't even out yet is just simply a bad idea. Granted, the Pokemon Company has announced 2 mainline games at once with Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus in 2021, but those were back-to-back, and were meant to be companions to one another. So they were able to get away with it then. However, I don't think they'll be able to get away with it this time, since Legends EA and Gen 10 will likely have little to no connection with one another. And to make matters worse, it would guarantee a short lifespan for Legends EA, like what happened with Legends Arceus when Scarlet and Violet were revealed. Plus, there wouldn't be a big mainline game to release for the 30th anniversary in 2026. I feel like it would just make a lot more sense to wait to reveal Gen 10 and just release it next year to capitalize off of the celebrations of the 30th anniversary. After all, the Pokemon Company released Gen 7 during the 20th anniversary in 2016, and not only that, but it would also give Legends EA more time to not just be in the spotlight, but also get more freaking development time, goddammit! Now, is it possible that the Pokemon Company will want to give a small teaser or even a brief mention that a new mainline game is in development for 2026? Of course. And I do think that if they're that desperate to tell us that Gen 10 is along the way, then that should be the way that they should do it. It would be a win-win, as we would know that a new mainline game is coming in 2026 for the 30th anniversary, and Legends EA will have more time to make a name for itself. But as of when I'm recording this video, which is the 22nd of February, we don't know how long the presentation is going to be. If I had to guess, I would probably say in the 10 to 15 minute range or so. Even if it goes beyond that range, I'm still not getting my hopes high too much. Since, like I said at the beginning, I'm expecting this presentation to be light on reveals and surprises. I have also seen some people toss around the possibility of Gens 1 through 3 being re-released on Nintendo Switch Online. And while I do think that would be great, I don't think it's going to happen this year. And they'll likely save that, again, for the 30th anniversary. I mean, that's exactly what they did when they re-released Gen 1 during the 20th anniversary. I really do think the Pokemon Company really is just going to spend this year preparing for next year. But they can, of course, still surprise us with 1 or 2 other big projects outside of Legends EA. But, like I mentioned already, I'm not expecting any kind of retro re-releases for Nintendo Switch Online, at least not on Pokemon Day itself. Nor am I expecting Gen 10 either, like I just mentioned earlier. Legends EA will definitely be the sole mainline game that we'll get for this year. And we'll probably get 1 or 2 other big side games to go along with that, along with some smaller projects scattered throughout the year. But outside of that, I'm not expecting much else. But what do you guys think? What are some of your biggest hopes for this upcoming Pokemon Presents that's going to be airing on Pokemon Day 2025? Definitely be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Now, again, I do ask of you to just please keep the comments spoiler free in case anything leaks between now and Pokemon Day, and same goes for any rumors that might have popped up too. But with all that being said, that's gonna do it for me in this video. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. This is Districts 9900 signing off.